Welcome to a special Executive Leadership Series edition of the Banking Transformed podcast, recorded at the Financial Brand Forum in Las Vegas. This series is sponsored by our friends at Microsoft. I'm your host, Jim Marous. During this series of episodes, we dive deep into the world of digital transformation in the financial services industry. We speak with 7 top executives from some of the most progressive financial institutions, each of whom has embarked on a unique digital transformation journey to become more future-ready and responsive to the changing needs of consumers. We explore the strategies, challenges, and lessons learned by these forward-thinking organizations as they navigate the complex landscape of digital transformation. Whether you're a financial services professional, a fintech entrepreneur, or simply interested in the future of banking, this executive leadership series provides you with valuable insights and inspiration as we explore the cutting edge of digital transformation in the banking industry. Okay, everyone. I think the people who keep on streaming in as they figure out that we're not where everybody else is. It's kind of like one of those outskirt branches in your branch system. You go, well, we hope this can be successful. We don't know if anybody's going to show up, but I was worried I'd get here and we'd have 4 of us, including the 2 on stage. I'm Jim Marous. If you don't know me, I'm the co-publisher of the Financial Brand, the owner and publisher of the Digital Banking Report, and also the host of the Banking Transformed podcast, which you're now the first group to ever be a part of a group presentation of our podcast. I am really happy the way we're starting this series of 7 podcasts in that we thought, let's talk about the topics that are part of digital transformation at every financial institution. Let's think about the questions that we have as we're in the banking industry, say, what are we solving for? And what's a big discussion point? And there's really no place better to start than to determine our branch is dead. Our branch is alive. The branches have to change. It's interesting. I was telling Steve that 2 weeks ago I was in Palm Desert, California at something called Bank Spaces. It was a brand new event that was created to have a bunch of organizations get together and talk about the future of branches. And I think we had about 600 people there. And I would say there were 600 different models being built. And everybody was interacting with each other to say, what's your model? How are you doing what you're doing? What's interesting about Steve, and I'll let him do his own introduction so I don't mess it up a little bit, but he works for TD Bank. And who's been here in banking for more than 20 years? Okay. TD Bank came down from Canada and acquired Commerce Bank in Maine. What is interesting about Commerce Bank, does anybody remember Commerce Bank before we get into it? Okay, a couple. Commerce Bank was known for one thing: an amazing, over-the-top customer experience in the branches. And through the years, one of the questions I always had was, how do you convert that mentality, that dynamic, to a digital platform? So Steve, you want to introduce yourself a little bit? What your role is?
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Steve Turley, so I am head of retail growth and transformation at TD Bank. And what that means is I have accountability around our consumer distribution channels, including our store network. So over 1,100 stores, our branch network up and down the East Coast from Maine to Florida. So it is openings, closings, repositioning, and really the transformation of that physical network and the integration of technology into our modernized network of the future.
Great. Let's see. We have a lot to talk about. I became more aware of Steve and the TD Bank situation that they reached out to us as Banking Transformed as Financial Brand, talking about research they did on the customer's utilization of branches and what the customer's mindset was around branches. Research covered a lot of different topics, but there were a lot of, from my perspective, surprises in that research. Aha moments you go, really? I wasn't necessarily thinking that, even if you had been in the space. And if any of you are looking at your branch transformation, you can't get anywhere without asking your customers what they want. But you also have to put it in perspective, because you got to realize that if you told me, hey, you know what? We want to know if you mind if we close the branch that's closest to you. Not many people are going, hey, no problem, I'll go 5 miles. It's what they're going to actually take action on, and then find out how much they use the branch, what they use it for. It's all changed. I was talking in the workshop you had yesterday on innovation going, I went into a branch about 3 weeks ago, and it wasn't even my bank. I don't know why I was going to the branch, but it all of a sudden it hit me that this branch had a big vault. And I started the banks 47 years ago, and in the branches as a management trainee, and we used to handle a ton of cash. I worked in what they called combat branches, which were very high activity branches where a lot of people came, especially on the 15th and 30th of the month. There were people updating passbooks. There were people cashing Social Security checks, unemployment checks, welfare checks. But it was crazy on the 15th and 30th of every month. We would get multiple cash deliveries. I think now going, geez, with all the retail outlets, with the restaurants, everybody else taking digital payments, do they even need a vault? You know, they're not holding safe deposit boxes anymore. In most cases, they're smaller footprints. So with your research you did, what were some of the surprises that you saw, having been in the space for as long as you have, that you said, I didn't expect this to still be this way or not be this way?
Yeah, definitely. And I am still waiting for that first customer to come up and shake my hand for closing their branch, but one day, right? You know, for us, the research that we did around consumers coming in and visiting branches, we found that 84% of folks had come in over the past year to visit a branch, and around a third had actually been there 5 or more times. And really, when we drilled into it, even 40% of folks indicated that location, which over time has maybe dissipated a bit in terms of that kind of primary branch choice, still remains that leading factor in how they go in and select a branch, which is something that maybe you might not get from perhaps the financial coverage or what you're reading in some of the trade publications.
84%. I mean, that to me seems extraordinarily high. What did the customers come in for? Because I doubt, again, I'm naive to this to a degree, that it's transactional. Sure. That it's more engagement-based and it's part of another transaction. What did you find?
Yeah, and when you think about it, if you go a few years back, to the pandemic and to COVID, we had a dip in folks coming into the store, into the branch.
Right.
Almost all of those folks came back. Upwards of 90% of our customers who were using the store prior came back into the store, but they came back in a different way. They came back, if you were coming in every day, maybe you're coming in once a week. If you're coming in once a week, maybe you're coming in once a month. But in doing that, the importance of those individual interactions went up. Because now, I don't have 30 or 15 or 12 store interactions over the course of the year. I might have 1 or 2 or 3. And so I got to nail those interactions if I'm a colleague in the store. People are really coming in for those advice-based conversations, those planning conversations, retirement conversations, or something broke, something messed up, right, and I need you to fix it. And so those interactions just become that much more important. They also become longer. So where you might have come in and just done a quick hit previously, now you've got your colleague in the store. It's got to sit down and take the time to walk a customer through an issue and get it resolved.
So it's interesting because when I go in the branch, it's for what you mentioned. Yeah. I have a challenge. Most recently, my challenge was there was a withdrawal taken out of one of my accounts for my Acorns automatic savings plan, and it took it out of an account that I didn't realize I was taking money out of, and I ran out of money. And they told me it was NSF. Now I can get into the whole dynamics on being pretty pissed off that they didn't notify me ahead of time, seeing that it was a regular activity. And I immediately transferred money within the branch or within the organization from another account. And I had them reverse the charge the first day. The next day, I had another NSF fee. Yeah. That came because of the whole activity of processing withdrawals before deposits. So again, I came back to the branch, and they're always looking forward to me coming in going, and they know exactly what I mean. I'm going to present a problem that doesn't necessarily an answer that they can draw.
Yeah.
How do we empower employees to know how to now answer not transactional questions, but truly challenges? How do we teach an employee now in a branch about the different platforms the customer is using, be it an iPad or being the difference between a Droid and Apple, which aren't always working the same way with regard to transactions? But do employees now more than ever have to understand the platforms, the technology, as much as the banking part of the equation?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought this up, Jim, because you can't be an expert in something that you don't use. And so it is critical, as we've thought about it, we've prioritized training our colleagues, but getting our colleagues familiar with the systems that our customers use, with our mobile app, and not just in terms of doing kind of a web-based training, but you are the user and you are navigating this for your own banking and your own financial situation. There's always going to be, kind of those one and done things that a colleague is going to come in and just be able to do for a customer. But the real power is, all right, this is a recurring issue. Let me go in and let me show you how to do it, because I know how to do this, and I'm gonna not only resolve this for you now, but I'm gonna teach you how to do it so it doesn't come up later. I think the other piece of this is information and real-time information. So Jim, if you come into the store, I see, oh boy, all right, Jim's been trying to do something on the digital channels and he hasn't been able to get it done, or Jim just called into the contact center and he had a frustrating experience. So I can be ready for that, and I can understand the issue that you're having and be ready to solve it.
So that's interesting. We talked about this yesterday, the importance of distribution and dispersion of insights. That a lot of organizations still hold a lot of the insights within the IT department. They haven't democratized the data model. But isn't there a great power when you can democratize the data to give the insights to the human content, the people that are the only people that have to face with the consumer and answer their question for them, where they may have already tried 3 other channels and felt like they failed or weren't being listened to? How important is it at TD to democratize the data down to what I'm going to call the most basic transactional level, the face-to-face person?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where we've prioritized, through CRM, through Salesforce, getting the insights and the information really consistently across channels, but out to that end user. So they're sitting there with a customer. They've got all the information sitting right there at their fingertips. They're able to understand how you've interacted with all of our channels, and just understanding that by the time somebody comes into the store having tried other areas, that this is a critical point in the relationship. So we're giving them all the tools that they need to be able to resolve issues.
So this is important because we are talking usually about the customer experience, and in talking to you and prepping for this conversation, it is very clear you probably put as much, if not more, emphasis now on the employee experience, certainly within the branch, but with every contact center. But we're talking about branches today. So you're trying to, as much as possible, make these employees feel secure in an environment where we're continually drilling down the fact that generative AI, data technology, digital banking, we're trying our hardest to move people out of the branch if possible. How do you not only empower the employee with the data, but how do you also make them comfortable in their roles without fearing their future? Because if I was looking at, there's 2 areas, back office,
Yep.
and the teller that have to sit there and go, okay, how many more days do I have here before somebody gives me the notice? How do you do that at TD?
Yeah, no, it is a great question, and I think back to the initial point, our interactions may be going down, but the ones that we have are more important. They're longer. We still need the folks in the stores. They just need to be trained to the right degree and to be able to handle the types of interactions that are coming in, whether those are specialized advisors in the stores, whether those are folks who can handle service all the way across sales. So really the way we go about it is we we've done a lot of work, and particularly with our younger colleagues, and I can speak to as being the dad of multiple Gen Zs. We use a lot of video to go out and talk with our employees. I think about my kids. Oftentimes when I'm trying to talk to them, their heads are in videos, but that's how many of our younger employees consume information these days. So we do a lot of short, punchy videos. And a similar approach to how we go out to our customers. You mentioned generative AI. One of the things that we've launched first in the contact center, but coming soon to our stores, is the ability to mine our library of policies and procedures and bring it back using the power of Gen AI into conversational language that our employee can bring back in an accurate but conversational way out to the customer. Finally, maybe we are working in terms of deploying real world scenarios and leveraging the power of augmented reality. So if you're doing a web-based training about how to deal with an upset customer, you may not be able to really fully get that experience in the same way that you would get in sort of a VR, AR scenario. So starting to build that into our training protocol.
So you mentioned Gen Z. We all are trying to engage more with the Gen Z generation, and most of us probably have a preconceived notion that the last thing a Gen Z consumer wants is to come into a branch. Yeah. They may not even know where their branch is. I have a 26-year-old. He went to his bank one time to open the account. He never got checks. In fact, when he was put on payroll, the school he went to, he did not know where to find the account number. He said, "How do I do this?" I said, "Look on your checks." He goes, "I didn't get any checks." I said, "Okay, I'm out of my league already on this one." And he found it was on his mobile banking app, but I did not know where to find that. But he is totally, if you ask him what his primary financial institution is and put it in context, it's Venmo. He has a Venmo account. He has a debit card with Venmo, so he makes almost all payments with Venmo. When it's not Venmo, it's Discover Card or Southwest Card because he wants to get points. But your survey found that 20% of Gen Zs want to have a branch available for advice and counseling. How does that mix? How do you prepare for this dynamic where we can't look at everybody simply by the demographic group they are? In much the same way that I'm not, while the demographics would say I'd come into my branch all the time, I've never been in my personal banking branch. It's a bank that doesn't serve my area. On the other hand, I go into my business bank branch for complaints primarily, and they're always reaching out to me. How do we set up in our minds, in our branches, to be prepared for Gen Z without over-committing that?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think, when I think about Gen Z and some of the issues and the challenges that they're battling, there's just almost too much information coming at them. They have so many ways to assimilate information, but it really comes back to what can you trust? I often think, we're not really in the banking business. We're in the trust business. And it is about, building that relationship. To your point, there is still a significant number of Gen Zs that we're seeing that want to come into a branch, want to sit down and have that advice-related conversation because they get so much information coming in. They want to know, what can I zero in on? What can I trust for my future?
So, as I mentioned, TD took over Commerce Bank. Commerce Bank was known for that amazing level of interaction and engagement with the consumer. People loved the bank because of the branch. The question becomes, how do you make digital more human, like the branch experience? How do you do the opposite of what we're talking with, for the most part, here about the branch itself? How do you bring that element of kindness, compassion, empathy, convenience, simplicity to the digital experience?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and the idea of wowing our customers, going above and beyond, surprising and delighting our customers is still a big piece for us at TD. have really looked to, through our investments in personalization, bring that same connected experience that we deliver in our stores out across our channels, whether that's contact center, whether that's digital, bringing that same sort of, we know you, we know our customer, we know what's important for you, we know that next best action, and we're going to deliver it in the same way consistently in our digital channels as we do in our stores. You earlier mentioned the dog biscuits, which has always been a big thing and is still a big thing for us in the store. We've actually recently debuted, you may have seen some coverage of this, what we're calling an automated treat machine for our dogs who want to interact in other channels. So your dog will come up to this ATM in Philadelphia, put his paws on the mat, and a few dog biscuits will pop out. So strong response to this. We're going to be deploying it across the network.
I got to bring my dog there because my wife's teaching things. I'm going like, what do you mean? You're playing cards and you're having a pet. You top, which one's the king? And then many of us have these pet machines. So you got to play a doggone Rubik's Cube to get the dog biscuit. When you talk about the design of brands, when you talk about the delivery network, what are you moving toward? Or is it multiple designs? Is it one design? Are you keep on testing what you're going on? Because we just got notification, we talked about it in our prep call, that we have a primary financial institution, top 6 or 7 primary financial institution that's putting $1 billion into their branch network. Now, it's not in new branches, it's in reconfiguration, rethinking. Yeah. It may have been the distribution of data. They didn't get very specific as to how they're spending that money.
Sure.
What are you looking for today? How has your branch changed over the last 5 years?
Yeah. As I think about at TD, our branches are probably on average 30, 40 years old. And I think we even have a young network relative to some of the major players. So if you think about where we were 30, 40 years ago, we didn't have that same digital option. ATM was
ATM.
ATM was still in the early days.
Introduced the ATM. Yeah.
So if you were doing a banking interaction, you were coming into the store. Now, over time, over decades, you've done paint, powder. You probably replace the carpet that people have been walking on for 3 decades. Yeah. But the layout of most of our branches remains the same. It remains the same as what it was when every transaction had to be done there. And really where we're going now is more around that conversation, sitting down and having that longer interaction around planning. And so where we're going is really around setting up more private space, putting more offices in place, putting specialized salespeople, wealth, small business, what have you, into the store, and clearly branding that, setting up more casual kind of space where folks can sit down and have a quick conversation like you and I are having right here, and really it is about setting us up for the types of interactions that we're going to have now and going forward, as opposed to the interactions that maybe we had a few decades ago.
Are you doing it within the same footprints?
Yeah, so we are. So we're renovating actually hundreds of our stores. We started last year, hit over 50 of them. We've got another 100 or so on tap this year. But we are working within our own footprints, and really looking at spaces where we want to double down, and we see some of the opportunities to go a little deeper and have some deeper conversations with our customers.
And it's interesting, it's like I keep on thinking and coming back to the fact that every one of these changes you're making, the foundation is giving more access to the tools needed to the people you're hiring and have hired, so that they can still be the customer's friend. You've mentioned the fact you've reconverted some branches. You've also built some branches, but you've also closed some branches.
Yeah.
How do you handle the closing of branches. How do you do it differently maybe today than you did when you were at Bank of America, where we just, for lack of a better term, simply shut the lights off on a day and moved all the transactions to another branch? How's the communication go? How does the engagement go? How does the whole process work where it's not as disruptive? Because, looking back, we got killed as branch employees when our branch was going to get closed. And we didn't necessarily play the friend of the company that was hiring us and was even finding a new place for us to go. We were never empowered with the why. What do you do nowadays?
Yeah, so store closures are something that we take very, very seriously, and with all the gravity, just given the potential impact to the community, to our colleagues, to our customers, and really it is more about to some of the themes that we've hit on. You think about gravity model. If I'm going to travel to a place, once a day versus once a month, I'm willing to do a longer drive or a longer walk in an urban area to something that I'm only coming in once a month. And so it is really more about that consolidation, where I maybe have 4 branches going into 3, or 3 stores going into 2, and having an opportunity to really double down on the locations that are still left. Certainly, communication is a big piece of this, and we do work very closely with risk and compliance and all of our community partners to understand impacts to the community. But it is something that we do take very seriously.
How do you work with your employees? How do you make it where they're actually going to be an advocate for your decision, as opposed to doing those secret undermining things from a personal basis? They're not trying to kill the company they work for, but the reality is it's real to them.
Yeah, no, certainly, those are absolutely difficult conversations. We always make available the opportunities for other jobs, whether in the store network and in other parts of the company.
Okay, so I'm going to have a little question answer for you out there. How many of you, some of you have heard this question already because I used it yesterday, I'll use it again later on today. How many of you have closed your primary financial relationship in the last 5 years? Raise your hands. Now, this is not abnormal because I have a room full of bankers, so why would you close your own relationship? But we have a few. How many of you, by a show of hands, over the last 2 years have opened a relationship at a digital organization, at another credit company, at some organization other than your primary financial institution, such as a SoFi, a Robinhood, an Acorns, a Chime? How many of you have opened something in the last 2 years? Raise your hands. Okay, everyone, look around, keep your hands up, because I don't know how many organizations realize and are keeping track of flow of funds, that even when we do the best possible job, we are losing relationships bit by bit by bit. We're losing relationships because we don't provide that digital accessibility, maybe at the same level. Maybe we make it very hard to open accounts. So from that perspective, we talked about I knew how the answer was going to work out, and it worked out according to plan. How do you compete with the organizations that people are going to, maybe because of speed, maybe because of lack of friction, maybe it's simply because there's an offering out there in a digital platform that's different, where you have to round out the corners to make it so people stay with you at a time when there's so much competition? From an organizational standpoint, how are you structuring trying to keep those relationships and build from what you have today? Because without the branch, we have not really mastered the cross-sell aspect of what's going on. I'm going to call it cross-sell, even though I tend to say it's better about helping consumers have a better financial platform, financial wellness platform. But how do you do the things that we really do much better in the branch? And how do you make it so you don't lose accounts to the other organizations?
Yeah, and this, I think, really cuts to the heart of the discussion we're having here about the importance of the branch and the resonance of the branch, because this is a customer by customer, relationship by relationship. There's no shortcut. Branch by branch to all of this, and there's just no shortcut to sitting down with the customer, making the call, setting up a time to come in. We've heard as we've gone out to our store teams, when our store teams go out and make that call and say proactively, hey, you have a CD coming up. Why don't we come in and sit down and talk about it? We get great response from our customers, both from an experience standpoint as well as a business standpoint. But there's just no shortcut to it. It is the power of that relationship that our store team, your branch teams are cultivating with your customers every day. That allows them to come in and compete for that business.
How do you measure return on branch? Because the old way of measuring the return on branch was transactional, was very, very, very transactional oriented. Now it's got to be done differently. How are you justifying keeping a branch open or closing it? Because it's not always, I wouldn't think, foot traffic, is it?
Sure. I think you have to be very thoughtful about how your customers use your channels and use your branch network, and really understand the value of that relationship, the value of, let's say, that back book, where folks are using that network, maybe not necessarily where they open an account 20 years ago and haven't come into the branch since. But also, what is that business generating? What is that branch generating in terms of flow of business ongoing? And then, of course, it really still is about covering communities. We hear constantly from our customers about the value that they see when they go by and they see a TD store. This shows the commitment to the community. It shows that we're here. It shows that we're here to say, even folks who don't really use the store, what if I had a problem?
See the billboard.
Yeah.
Yep.
I could come in. I could be there. So,
okay. So looking in the future, you see at TD Bank alone, you see more branches, less branches, or reconfigured branches. And you can get off the hook and say all, but on a context overall, what do you see as happening at TD Bank? And then what do you see as the industry as a whole? What do you see? Because we seem to be slowly going in a direction, but then all of a sudden we see an aberration, what I'll call an aberration, where it doesn't change as much. And we have this net growth. Where are you at TD?
Yeah, I think we've, if you think about the industry, we've probably seen 3 or 4% decline in branches per year if you go back over the last 5-6 years. TD, we've been below that, certainly on a growth basis, but we've also been opening in that time period, and we feel like we have significant opportunity to continue to fill in some of the markets, particularly in the Southeast, where our networks are a bit thinner, and there's some exciting growth opportunities. But I would say we've kind of slowly tailed down over the course of years. I don't know that that's going to change anytime soon from a net basis. But where we are going to continue to invest is really in the stores that are there. Still continuing to reconfigure, to renovate, to set up those private spaces for conversations, and really double down on several hundred of our store locations.
It's interesting. I'll keep on getting back to the fact that it doesn't necessarily mean a loss of employees or loss of branches. I look at the airports. We've digitized so much of the welcome experience. We make consumers now do their own passes, everything else. But the reality is you don't see fewer people behind the counter. And I think that we've reallocated the thought process, reallocated the experience. We're doing more along the line of greeting. We have some airlines that actually greet people as they enter the plane. That's an additive thing, but it's trying to look at the entire experience. But those are different channels. They're using different channels. The branch network that you're working with has different channels as well. How do you make it so that, and you mentioned it a little bit, but how do you make it so that the experience is going to be the same at the branch as it is on the customer call center, going to be the same as it is they get on a mobile app, going to be the same if I'm using an online app? How do you make it so that those experiences get aligned so closely so that the consumer doesn't feel like I'm talking to 5 different organizations?
Yeah. It is important, I think, as an institution to decide what your non-negotiables are. What are your non-negotiable behaviors? And those are the things that are going to be consistent. For us, we wanted to standardize our store experience from Maine to Florida. But for anybody, really, it is what is that going to look like in the branch? What is that going to look like in the contact center? And take a set of, a handful of those key principles and make sure that all of your employees, front office, back office, everybody is aligned to these are the things that we're not going to compromise on.
Finally, we have people from all size organizations, all asset sizes, all financial conditions being different. We have organizations with one branch. We have organizations with several hundred. What one piece of advice, being in this industry and doing this for as long as you have, what one piece of advice would you give to everybody in the room saying, whatever you do, make sure you do this today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you got to think about, tailoring where you're going from a branch network perspective to the values of your organization and really commit to that. I think there's a lot of ways to come at this. I know, the direction that we're going for TD Bank, and it is based on what we hear from our customers, what our customers tell us, and what our values are. Understand that for your organization. Get out with your customers. Have them tell you. How to make your decisions, because you're not going to get any better feedback than that.
And your employees. We're going to try something here because this is an unusual situation. We're doing a podcast with the people on the other side of the camera. Are there any questions that we can ask Steve or myself about what you're going through right now in your branch transformation process? Yes.
I just had a quick question regarding when you're talking about money moving out of the bank, whether it's through customers or even employees. I think we've always had situations in our country where either inflation's up or we're going through a recession. We're clearly in a state where consumers are still spending, but they're also looking to have their money work for them. So the conversation I'm having is they're loyal to the bank, but they're more loyal to their cash, and how that's being I guess increased with rates. So how do we combat that when it's a world of digital access where in like 2 clicks you can find out if I move my 10,000 here, I'll make even more money than leaving it in my current.
Are you talking about the advisory side of that, or cash as a transactional vehicle? So really the role of cash in the future. So the question was, going forward, what's the role of cash in the future? And that's interesting because that's probably regional and organization. I was at a branch in middle of Georgia on a Saturday going to a wedding, and we saw a line out the door. I said, "Is this a brand new branch? You're giving away something?" They go, "No. This is all military people that truly work on a daily basis with cash being the primary transaction vehicle."
Yeah.
How do you work with that within your store network?
Yeah, I mean, cash is certainly something that we try to be thoughtful around our cash management strategies. I think to the question, you really need to leverage that relationship as much as you can. There's a certain competitiveness in terms of your rates, your products that is always going to play out for a set of customers. But where we've had success is, let's say, the store employee, the licensed employee, really working together to help that customer understand, what are the options for my cash, be it in FDIC accounts, be it in investment accounts, and come together around a solution there.
Yeah, a couple of minutes. Yes, back there.
What's your strategy or plan, or how do you deal with experimentation in the retail branch for new forms of service or features?
Yeah.
What was that key word there? The what is the retail branch? Sorry.
Experimentation.
Oh, question was for the people in the camera audience. What is your consideration on experimentation of the retail branch?
Yeah, great question. What we've done at TD is we've actually set up a live innovation lab. So we took a store where we had 6,000 square feet. It was really cavernous. Kind of cut it in half. One side remains maybe a more modern looking store. The other side is a live lab, and we're able to sort of close it off, open it up. But what we're able to do is pull customers aside where we have a new product, let's say something that we want to test. We're testing the augmented reality headsets that I mentioned earlier in the space coming up. But not everybody's going to have a live lab. I think the idea, though, is the more you can get some of this in front of your customers, in front of your colleagues, they're going to be able to tell you, all right, this resonates, this doesn't resonate, and doing it, kind of in that live flow is better than maybe being in some, warehouse or back office somewhere.
Any other questions? We have one more. Yes.
How do you identify, what's your process in narrowing down those non-negotiable values that your customers really appreciate? When it's really hard as a community bank to be able to kind of hone in on when you're trying to be everything for everyone. I'm curious how you really lean into those.
Yeah, so it's a great question, one without an easy answer. But what we've tried to do is really bring in a lot of customer feedback. We've tried to really understand, take it from the vision of where we're trying to go. So if we're aligned around providing advice to customers and providing personalized insights to customers, what are the things that we need to do in order to provide that kind of branch experience? Maybe we need to go out and ensure, we have a lobby leader present at all times so we can move folks to the right place in the store. But I think it's really starting with that end goal and thinking about, how does that translate into the actual experience from a customer as they walk through the door.
Okay, I thank you for all your participation and for sitting through our first live podcast ever. The one thing I'm going to leave you with is a reality check. When you ask or when you check to see how people like to open accounts, realize that just because it looks like everybody wants to use the branch, check to see how broken your digital process is. Because more times than not, what we're seeing in our research is the customer starts in the digital engagement platform and either gets forced to or feels like that's their only option is to go to a branch because they don't want to spend 15 minutes on their mobile device. In addition, if you think you've got it all figured out, realize that the employees have a vested interest in killing that digital transactions if it never started, and to work really hard to say, Steve, so glad you got here today. I know you said you started on the digital platform. I like to start from scratch only because I don't want to miss anything on your behalf, and I want to spend some time with you. The customer's going to feel great. The employee's done what they wanted, which is completely make the digital component of that disappear, all because we haven't done the easy work, the tough work, the basic work, which is open the front door to people that want to start from the digital platform and open an account in 3 minutes. I mentioned to yesterday's group that we've done research. Only about 17% of organizations truly have a front-to-back digital experience where they don't have to come to the branch. Fewer than that actually have it in 3 to 5 minutes. It's less than 20%, which means 80% of the organizations in your marketplace have something that is broken. If you're the first from the marketplace to fix it, you will increase your account openings by anywhere from 30 to 50% overnight. And if you do it the right way without getting your own way, it's going to only take about 3 months to build that process if you open your minds to new ways. I leave you that only because it's my key set item. If you listen to the podcast at all or read my articles, it's the one thing I get frustrated by, that we make it so difficult to do banking. Steve, thank you for your time. Thanks, I appreciate Tim. It quite a bit.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pat.
We hope you enjoyed these candid conversations sponsored by Microsoft. Microsoft enables digital transformation for an era of intelligent cloud and an intelligent edge. Its mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more.